you probably believe your identity is something you chose. Your beliefs, your values, the people you call your people. It feels personal. It feels uniquely yours. But what if your identity isn't really a choice? What if it's one of the oldest survival instincts your brain has ever developed? Think about it. Throughout history, people have sacrificed everything for their identity. They've gone to war for it. They've abandoned their homes because of it. Some have even given their lives rather than betray it. At first, that sounds irrational. Why would anyone value an idea more than their own survival? The answer lies far beyond civilization. It begins over 100,000 years ago, long before cities, governments, or written history. Your ancestors lived in small hunter-gatherer bands, surrounded by predators, harsh climates, and constant uncertainty. Back then, survival wasn't an individual achievement. It was a group effort. One person couldn't hunt large animals alone. One person couldn't stay awake all night watching for danger. One injury, one failed hunt, one harsh winter. That was often enough to end a life. But together, people survived. They shared food, protected one another, raised children together, passed down knowledge that no single person could discover alone. In that world, belonging wasn't a luxury. It was survival. Imagine waking up one morning to find your tribe gone. No fire, no protection, no one to help if you were injured, no one to warn you when danger approached. For most of human history, being cast out wasn't just lonely. It was often a death sentence. Evolution noticed that. Over thousands of generations, natural selection favored the people who formed strong social bonds. Those who cooperated survived more often than those who didn't. Their children inherited brains that instinctively sought acceptance and feared exclusion. Slowly, something extraordinary happened. Your ancestors stopped thinking only as individuals. They began thinking as members of a group. That simple shift changed human history forever. Your brain evolved to answer one question before almost any other. Are you one of us? Long before it judged someone's intelligence, or kindness, or honesty, it judged whether they belonged. Because people who belonged were usually the people who kept you alive. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar believes our unusually large brains evolved partly because managing social relationships became one of humanity's greatest survival challenges. As groups grew larger, our ancestors needed a faster way to recognize who could be trusted. Identity became that shortcut. Shared language, shared stories, shared rituals, shared symbols. These weren't just traditions, they were signals. They told your brain who was safe, who would share food, who would protect you, and who might leave you to face the wilderness alone. Over time, identity became something much deeper than a collection of beliefs. It became the invisible thread holding human groups together. Without it, cooperation becomes difficult. Without cooperation, civilization never happens. Every village, every kingdom, every nation began with people believing they belonged to something larger than themselves. That instinct allowed complete strangers to trust one another, to hunt together, to build together, to defend one another. It may be one of the greatest evolutionary advantages our species ever developed, but every evolutionary advantage comes with a cost. The same instinct that tells you who belongs also tells you who doesn't. And that ancient instinct is still shaping your decisions today. Not in the African savannah, but in classrooms, offices, sports stadiums, political debates, and every time you open social media, your world has changed, your brain has not. Your brain has been answering the same question for hundreds of thousands of years. Who is one of us? The remarkable thing is how little evidence it needs. In the 1970s, social psychologist Henri Tajfel demonstrated this with a surprisingly simple experiment. He divided complete strangers into meaningless groups based on arbitrary choices. The groups had no history, no culture, and no real differences. Yet within minutes, people began favoring members of their own group. They trusted them more. They rewarded them more generously. They even treated outsiders less fairly. Nothing about those identities was real. But to the human brain, they were real enough. That experiment revealed something extraordinary. Your brain doesn't need centuries of shared history to create an identity. Sometimes it only needs a label. That's why modern life is filled with tribes. Political parties, religions, nations, sports teams, even the brands you buy. Once something becomes part of your identity, your brain begins protecting it just as it once protected your tribe. And that's where something fascinating happens. Arguments stop feeling like conversations. They start feeling like threats. When someone challenges a deeply held belief, it rarely feels as though they're questioning an idea. It feels as though they're questioning you. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman found that social rejection activates many of the same brain regions involved in physical pain. To your brain, exclusion isn't just emotionally unpleasant, it resembles injury. For your ancestors, that reaction made perfect sense. Being rejected by your group could mean losing your protection, your food, and your future. Even though the world has changed, your brain still carries that ancient alarm system. A disagreement online, being left out of a conversation, feeling ignored by friends. None of these threaten your survival, yet your body reacts as if they might. Your heart beats faster. Stress hormones rise. Your mind instinctively searches for a way to restore belonging. That's why changing your mind can feel so incredibly difficult. Social psychologist Leon Festinger called this cognitive dissonance. When new evidence challenges a belief that's become part of your identity, your brain experiences psychological discomfort. Instead of changing the belief, it often searches for reasons to defend it. Not because humans hate the truth, but because for most of our evolutionary history, protecting your identity was often the safest path to survival. That doesn't mean you're trapped by your instincts. In fact, humans possess something extraordinary: the ability to reflect on their own minds. Your ancestors couldn't always question the tribe. You can. That's one of the greatest advantages of living in the modern world. The instinct to belong helped humans survive long enough to build villages, kingdoms, and eventually civilizations. But the same instinct can also divide us. It can make disagreement feel like danger. It can make curiosity feel uncomfortable. It can convince us that changing our minds means losing ourselves. But maybe real strength isn't defending every belief you've ever held. Maybe it's understanding why those beliefs feel so important in the first place. Because your identity was never designed to imprison you. It was designed to protect you. It helped your ancestors survive predators, harsh winters, and a world that rarely forgave isolation. Today, that same instinct still whispers in your mind every time you feel the need to defend who you are. So the next time an opinion feels impossible to let go of, pause for a moment. Ask yourself one simple question. Am I protecting the truth, or am I protecting my identity? Because for almost all of human history, those two things were nearly impossible to separate. Today, for the first time in our evolution, they don't have to be.